Tonight, still waiting. Confusion over when Sue Gray's report into possible lockdown parties in Downing Street will be published after police intervention.
He has paralysed government, so the sooner we get both the full report and the investigation completed, the better.
Also making the headlines, rules relaxed further in Scotland. Masks are no longer needed for adults taking part in activities with children under 5. It's another step towards normality, but some nervousness remains.
My facial expressions are what you teach me, especially at that young age, so it does help.
I kind of thought I would be desperate to get it off, but I think I'm so used to having worn it for so long, I'm a bit paranoid now.
In sport, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst reveals how Rangers secured the signing of Manchester United winger Amad Diallo.
And meet Leo, the Cocker Spaniel who's learnt some new tricks, and one of them might just save someone's life. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. There is further uncertainty tonight over when a report into possible lockdown parties in Downing Street will be published after an intervention by police this morning. The Metropolitan Police said it has asked for minimal reference to the report to events they're investigating.
On a visit to Glasgow, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said the government has been paralysed by the investigations and called for them to be published as soon as possible. The SNP claims collusion is saving the Prime Minister's position. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
And my mother-in-law passed away, so COVID or? Yeah.
The Labour leader visited the Forge Market to talk about the rising cost of living. But the row over parties in Downing Street was never far from the surface.
When you watch the television and you hear about all these things, it does make gang difference. Oh, of course.
This week, the Metropolitan Police said it would, after all, investigate gatherings here during lockdown. That came as the report by Sue Gray was due to be handed in to Number 10. This morning, the Met said it had asked for minimal reference in her report to events they're investigating to avoid prejudicing its inquiries.
The whole of government is paralysed because the police are now looking at what the Prime Minister was getting up to in Downing Street. And, you know, on the one hand, you've got people really worried about their bills, and you've got these investigations going into what the Prime Minister was up to. He has paralysed government, so the sooner we get both the full report and the investigation completed, the better.
The SNP says the situation is getting murkier by the minute.
It seems today collusion between the Cabinet Office and the Metropolitan Police are once again saving the day for the Prime Minister. It's not good enough. The report must be published. He must come to the House of Commons. He must be held accountable. And if he won't resign, Tory MPs have got to grow a backbone and recognise that this man's not fit for office.
Conservative MPs have said they will wait to see the outcome of Sue Gray's inquiry before deciding whether to call for a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister.
The timing of Sue Gray's report, the contents of Sue Gray's report, what it cover or doesn't cover is a matter entirely for her, as it should be. What I am confident about is that her report and the police investigation together will give the public and Parliament all the information they need to enable us to draw a line under this episode and to move on.
This is another twist that has taken many by surprise in a row that has dominated Westminster for weeks. It's one that may have bought the Prime Minister time to win over MPs, pondering whether to push him over the edge. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
The rules on social distancing and face coverings have been relaxed further in Scotland. Masks are no longer required for adults taking part in organised activities with children under 5. Exemptions also apply in certain indoor settings, such for people leading religious services.
Monday will see another change, with employers preparing to welcome back staff who've been working from home. It's another step towards normality, but there remains some nervousness. Here's our chief reporter, Sian Frew.
This class, called Ninja Tots, aims to give youngsters under 5 more confidence. Adults taking part now no longer have to wear face masks. A welcome step forward, but this morning parents weren't in a hurry to take the leap.
I kind of thought I would be desperate to get it off, but I think I'm so used to having worn it for so long, I'm a bit paranoid now. And more people that I know recently have caught it.
I'll continue to wear my mask, particularly in environments like this, because I just don't understand why we would go through the nightmare of the last 2 years to all of a sudden all be walking around without our masks on.
I think it's great for the kids. Like, they for so long have just got used to seeing their parents or coaches or leaders or whoever wearing masks, and it's not great for them.
You can see the nervousness a wee bit of the parents at first, but generally the under fives were a bit slower coming back. The primary ones are kind of like take them. But they're getting relaxed now. Everybody's settling back into nursery and kind of finding their feet. My facial expressions are what you teach me, especially at that young age, so it does help.
Small changes too in place for Friday prayers at mosques across Scotland. Now physical distancing for all religious services has been reduced from 2 metres to 1.
We are supposed to pray shoulder to shoulder rather than keeping a metre apart or keeping 2 metres apart. So definitely for everybody it's been better, it's been welcomed.
Offices of all sizes are preparing to welcome back staff. Many are adopting a hybrid model, with employees splitting their time between the workplace and home.
Really excited. We're really pleased that that's an option for our team. We actually started a 4-day working week pre-pandemic, so we started piloting that in January of 2020. But really at that stage it was pretty much always about coming into the office.
It's been somewhat confusing when we've had work from home if you can. There's a subjectivity to that, but we're looking forward, and from Monday it will be much clearer what we're allowed to do. We just need to work with our colleagues to make sure the working environment is safe.
Office workers are the sole trade of this coffee shop.
It's a massive relief that it's eventually coming, because it has been a long time coming, and a lot of businesses around here have just been clinging on.
These are significant steps, but not all restrictions have been relaxed. Officials say any excitement must still be tempered with caution. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Members of Scotland's Ukrainian community say they're extremely concerned about the prospect of a new war in the country their parents had to flee many decades ago.
Tensions are rising, with Russia sending large numbers of soldiers to the Ukraine border and fears Vladimir Putin could order an invasion in the next month. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
It's quite serious, and it just shows you the emotion.
At the latest meeting of the Ukrainian club in Edinburgh, there's only one topic of conversation: the threat of war in the motherland at the front of everyone's mind.
The Ukrainian people are used to the situation, but they're prepared to do almost anything they need to do. You're talking about 60-year-old women saying they'll stand up and defend their country should they need to. What we will do here is support Ukraine in every way we can.
The memorial on Carlton Hill honours the millions of victims of genocide in Ukraine 90 years ago, but far from being confined to history, there's now the very real prospect of the country being visited by death on a large scale all over again. Russia has amassed a huge arsenal within striking distance of Ukraine, and it's built up tens of thousands of troops on the borders. While it has denied planning an attack, there's a growing international view an invasion could happen within weeks.
No one can predict what's going to happen, but because I personally don't trust Mr. Putin or his cohort in the Kremlin, I wouldn't be surprised if his ego forces him to do something terrible and drastic.
Ukrainian soldiers patrolling their borders do so knowing there's a real risk of being overwhelmed.
So it's kind of goes like
Ivan,
this.
who moved to Scotland 6 years ago, told me an escalating conflict feels inevitable.
People know what to expect. People are ready to fight, and especially if, unfortunately, not many people understand Russia in here. But if you're monitoring their news, when their MPs saying we're gonna burn Ukrainians on the squares, this is not good news for Ukrainians.
Seen here at a Ukrainian Burns night, Stuart is a businessman originally from Helensburgh. He's worked and lived in Kiev for a quarter of a century, married to a local.
There's different companies, expats are leaving, and that increases the stress level, increases, what to do. This is the first time I've been back in the UK in 2.5 years, because I've got a business conference. And sod's law, of course, is that I come here and this is all kicking off in Ukraine.
It just the stress level, you carry on living, you're doing the same thing which you did, like, let's say 1 month ago, 2 months ago. It just mentally, what I noticed, it just like an aura or energy around everyone is changed, people are very scared.
For now, people in the Ukrainian capital take each day as it comes, desperately hoping their country can avoid a descent into full-scale war. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Other stories across Scotland, and the Duke of York has given up his honorary life membership at the Royal and Ancient Golf Club at St Andrews. The announcement comes as the fallout from Prince Andrew's civil sexual assault case continues. In a statement, the club say they respect and appreciate his decision.
A police investigation is underway after 5 school children became unwell after taking an unknown substance at a school hostel. 2 of the pupils were taken to hospital following the incident at Papdale Halls in Orkney. The local authority is warning parents and carers to ask their children about a clear capsule that may contain a brown or other coloured liquid.
Now, it's the first major shake-up of the highway code for decades. Pedestrians, cyclists and horses are to be prioritised on the roads. Road users have been split into hierarchies, with the least potentially dangerous, pedestrians, at the top and the heaviest and potentially most lethal road users at the bottom, for example, large lorries.
So, how does it work? Well, at junctions, drivers and motorcyclists will have to give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross. They'll also have to give priority to cyclists in certain situations, for example on a roundabout and when cyclists are turning in or out of a junction or changing lanes. And they will have to leave a distance of at least 1.5 metres when overtaking a bike. Cyclists will have to give way to pedestrians, including on shared use paths. The changes come into force this weekend. Vanessa Kennedy has more.
Near misses like these are a common complaint for cyclists on our roads. Cars coming too close for comfort and not maintaining a safe distance is something many say put lives at risk.
I've been involved in 2 road traffic collisions myself while cycling, both times not my fault. But these things show the near misses, and the collisions are showing that we've not got a society that is designed around allowing people to walk, wheel and cycle freely.
The changes coming into force tomorrow should make a difference, but there's concern many of us know little about them.
We get involved and called out to many minor collisions, and many minor collisions could have been avoided if people had abided by the rules of the highway code. And often, it is people breaking simple rules that also can be dangerous. Many of us who passed our test many years ago, decades ago, and rarely look at the highway code. And that's where we actually need more of an information campaign to get some of these messages across.
Amongst the 49 amendments and 8 new rules is a hierarchy of road users, as well as changes in prioritising cyclists and pedestrians at crossings. The new code also says that drivers and motorcyclists should not cut across cyclists when turning into or out of a junction or changing direction or lane.
As part of the changes, drivers are also being encouraged to adopt a new technique that's used widely across parts of Europe called the Dutch Reach, which involves opening the door with your opposite hand. Now, this means it's more likely that you'll be able to swivel, check behind you and check both mirrors before exiting the car. And it's hoped by using this technique, you'll be less likely to hit any oncoming cyclists.
I don't think the thing about favouring pedestrians at corners, it's a bit of a weird one. If you're coming off a busy road, somebody's going to, I think there's going to be a few rear ends, but other than that, see what happens.
I think it'll probably be absolutely fantastic, but by the time it sinks through the population, I'll be gone.
To be honest, I've got no clue what the old one is. So, but yeah, I reckon, good to kind of prioritise pedestrians and cyclists.
The new rules aim to make the relationship between everyone who uses our roads much clearer, and ultimately we all have a responsibility to keep each other safe. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News.
New research shows that care for sufferers of endometriosis is not meeting base level and that services are lacking. The debilitating and painful condition affects 100,000 women in Scotland, yet on average it takes 8.5 years to diagnose. A cross-party group of MSPs has said it's critical the Scottish Government comes up with a plan to reduce that time. Our reporter Polly Bartlett's been speaking to a woman who waited 10 years for a diagnosis.
That's painkillers.
Carly McGowan can't remember a life without pain. Her symptoms began when she was 14, and despite 2 surgeries and daily medication, she says endometriosis still dominates everything.
There's not a day that it's not sore. Clothing's uncomfortable, eating's uncomfortable, sleeping's uncomfortable. There's not really any aspect of my life that it doesn't touch on, if I'm honest.
Carly says the pain can be unbearable.
The point that you're on the floor, you can't stand up, you can hardly catch a breath. It can be really scary, and that is considered just normal for us, and it's really quite frightening, and especially like that if you've got your kids in the house and things like that and that's going on, that's a frightening thing, and to know that like that's normal.
The gynecological condition affects 1 in 10 women, and in Scotland it can take around 8.5 years to get a diagnosis. That's 6 months longer than the UK average. And while there are 3 specialist centres, including one here at the Queen Elizabeth, campaigners say it's still too difficult for women in rural areas to access treatment. Medics say these waiting times are having a huge impact on mental health.
As you can imagine, living with chronic pain every day and managing it is awful. And I think that's really compounded by not being diagnosed, or more importantly, not being appropriately treated.
As outlined in the Women's Health Plan in August last year, the Scottish Government are committed to reducing waiting times within the current Parliament. But MSPs have said that much more needs to be done.
I found that there is a total lack of information at government level on endometriosis. Currently, endometriosis waiting times in each NHS board are not available. The Scottish Government is unable to identify the total number of people who have been diagnosed with endometriosis in the population from routine healthcare data. If we are seriously to tackle this disease, we need the right information, and I would urge the SNP Government to give us a detailed plan and time frame.
The Scottish Government say they will publish the plan by spring. Women living with the condition hope that means others won't have to spend a decade waiting for a diagnosis. Polly Bartlett, STV News.
Now Rahman is here with the sport.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has revealed it took less than 48 hours for Rangers to secure a loan deal from Manchester United winger Amad Diallo. The club made the move for the talented teenager after Yanis Hadji was ruled out for the rest of the season. Getting down to business in his new surroundings. 24 hours after sealing his move to Rangers, Amad Diallo trained with his new teammates. The Rangers management team believe his signing is a coup for the club.
Excited. I think we started the talks with him and his agents on Monday. Tuesday as well with the agents and Amat. Me as a coach explained him the way we played and the way we want to use him. I think they were all positive talks with him, and of course the stature of the club also excited him.
Diallo is in line to make his debut against Ross County tomorrow. Rangers go into the game on the back of a narrow win over Livingston. Scott Arfield scored the solitary goal on Wednesday night. The midfielder is out of contract in the summer.
Scott has been really, really important for the team, not only this season, but all the season before this season as well. He's an experienced player, and he's definitely a player I want to have longer to be at Rangers. So hopefully, we can welcome him next season as well.
James Sands has a couple of games under his belt since making the move from New York City. And the midfielder has revealed former Celtic boss Ronnie Dyler, who's the manager at New York City, gave him a few pointers about Scottish football.
He had sort of talked to me kind of about what his experience was like at Celtic, and he told me about the league a little bit and shared some tips and stuff. And I spoke to Claudio Reyna as well, just because I know him from my time in New York. So just those two guys were kind of big influences on the move, and I think I'm happy I talked to them for sure.
Joe Aribo returns to the squad for the trip to Dingwall. News from Celtic now, and Yorios Giakoumakis says he always knew he'd make an impact at Celtic when given the chance. Following an early injury, the Greek striker then spent the winter break on the training ground instead of taking time off. He says he's ready to continue his scoring spree. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Yorios Giakoumakis is a man who's had to wait for his chance. After signing late in the summer, then sidelined by a knee problem, he now has 2 goals in 2 games. Injuries and international call-ups mean he's the man leading the line for Celtic, and the Greek forward knew he'd come good.
I never doubt myself because I believe in my abilities, I believe in my... I have a big motivation. I had a tough period during the first 6 months. I stayed for some extra trainings here, the days off that my teammates had. I had to stay, I had to... get informed, get fit.
In other news, Alawa's Mohamed Niang has been given a 2-match ban for this challenge on Yusuke Ideguchi. The Japanese midfielder remains on the sidelines for the visit of Dundee United.
Dundee United came here and it's frustrated us last time, so we know it's going to be a challenge. So we've got to be up for it. So I'll select a team that I think will get the job done tomorrow. We obviously still have some limitations in terms of options.
With the transfer window closing on Monday, Postecoglou says there'll be no further signings, but some players may leave.
We're still working on trying to get some loan opportunities for some of our boys. So I'd expect there will be some sort of activity between now and the end of the window.
Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Now, after Graham Alexander was sent off for swearing at a referee, the Motherwell boss says he's confused by the decision, as most managers do the same. Alexander was ordered off by Andrew Dallas for protesting Liam Donnelly's red card against Hibs on Wednesday night. He could be hit with a touchline ban.
I don't know what the repercussions are. I'm waiting to hear and it'd be good to speak to somebody about it. Yeah, I was shouting and I did swear, pretty much shout and swear every game and every training session, possibly. Every other manager's shouting and swearing, not just in Scotland but all over the place. It's, I'm 50 years old, I've sworn a lot over my life.
Well, after that goalless draw against Hibs, Motherwell are on the road. They take on Hearts. The early kick-off isn't Dingwall. Rangers, of course, are the visitors. St Mirren, who are in a rich vein of form, they've won 3 games in a row, are away to Dundee. It's Celtic against Dundee United. Livingston are away to Hibs, and bottom club St Johnstone take on Aberdeen. Rugby news, and Glasgow Warriors head coach Danny Wilson has challenged his fringe players to take their opportunity when they face Connacht in the league tomorrow. The Warriors, who travelled to Ireland earlier, are without 7 internationals who are with the Scotland squad. If other results go their way, they can move into second place in the league with a win.
It's a chance to get an away win, a chance to get more points on the board, which could really propel us in terms of league position. So it's an important game. It's a tough game away from home. At Connacht is always a tough challenge. Obviously, in this period, they don't lose many players to international rugby, like maybe the Leinsters and Munsters. It's a great opportunity for us to get get a performance that hopefully leads to a win, and also look at a couple of different combinations.
And that's an afternoon kick-off in Ireland tomorrow. That is all support for me tonight, folks. I'll see you again next week.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now, the weekend weather with Sean.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Well, the main story for us this weekend is some stormy conditions at times, especially during tomorrow morning and then potentially on Sunday night as well, and some large waves possible during those strong winds too. We're in the sort of peak tide at the moment, around spring tides. Now, today the wind has been picking up. It's been turning a lot milder. I know it hasn't felt like it in that wind, but the wind continued to strengthen, and exceptional temperatures tonight. 10, 11 degrees. We're staying in the low 50s in Fahrenheit. Temperatures at this time of year should be down to about 1 or 2 degrees, so about 10 degrees above normal. Temperatures actually coming down during the day tomorrow as colder air moves in. Now, this little shaded area, the white area here, is where we've got the risk of gusts of wind 70 miles per hour. That little pink shade you saw around Colin gives us a possibility of winds gusting 75 for a time, and we'll even see gusts of wind around 60 to 70 miles per hour moving further south and east, potentially into West Lothian, around Falkirk, gusts 70 here. Elsewhere, quite widely, 50 to 60 miles per hour. So an extremely windy and gusty start to tomorrow. Not so great. Rain early on, that clears away southwards. The wind starts to swing round to a northwesterly, and then as the winds ease down, most of the showers easing back towards the north, but they will be turning increasingly wintry over higher ground. And look at the temperatures. By the end of the afternoon, we're about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. So we start off 11 or 12, 4 or 5 by the end of the day, and feeling even colder in that wind. Then on Sunday, we see more wind and rain coming in, and the risk again of some stormy conditions. It looks as if the strongest winds this time will affect the Ayrshire, the Dumfries and Galway coast. So a lot going on, and I regret saying it was too quiet last week. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, you might not be able to teach an old dog new tricks, but you can certainly teach a young one.
And if more of us could pick up the skills that Cocker Spaniel Leo has copied from his trainer, it might just help someone's life. Kirsten Tate has the story.
Every day is a play day for Leo.
Leo, wait. Drop.
But he's no ordinary dog.
Ready, up, 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 up.
And while you might not actually find him assisting the emergency services, it takes just 20 minutes for Leo to learn complex tricks like these. Not only has it earned him championship status at trick dog competitions, but he's also the perfect playing partner for Connect 4.
I knew he was going to be amazing. I've got his half-sister Phoebe, and she's like a super good dog, so I knew that I was getting a really good dog. Just didn't quite realise, because so much of what he does, like, I didn't even consider it possible. Like, I could never have dreamt of owning him, because I didn't really like dogs could do these things.
When Leo was a young pup, he contracted a deadly parasite, and his owner Emily feared the worst.
Like, when we took him to vet, we had no idea like if he was going to survive it. So it was a really scary few days. I'll never get another Leo. Like, I'm aware this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own a dog like Leo. Like, it'll never happen to me again.
Leo made a full recovery, but by then the country was in lockdown and Emily couldn't take them to their usual agility competitions. But it gave the pair a chance to learn some new skills, and while his work might not be a Picasso, one of his paintings did raise £100 at a charity auction. He's also already won 6 international dog competitions, getting special recognition for his tricks. We'll see him in the future. Kirsten Tate, STV News.
Leo could give us a run for our money. I guess you call that C-PAW training.
John. What I want to know though, John, is have you learned any new tricks lately? You know what they'll say about old dogs?
Thanks again for that, Kellyanne. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.